Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today we're going to interview Larry Hall from a company called survivalcondo.com. This company purchases retired missile silos and then redesigns them and turns them into luxury underground penthouse bunkers that people can purchase and occupy during the next crisis, whatever that may be. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel for free. You can also like, comment, and follow us. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so make sure to click on that notification bell so that you can be notified every time we upload a new episode. Also, we ask that you post a link to today's show on all your social media to help spread the word. Now, let's say hello to Larry Hall. Hello, Larry. Welcome to the John Ark Show. How are you today, sir?
John, I'm doing great, and thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, it's entirely our pleasure. Larry, you're a very successful man who could have pursued a number of career options. When and why did you decide you wanted to build underground penthouse bunkers?
Well, I've had a couple of different careers, but to the when, right after 9/11, when the World Trade Center was bombed, I thought that there was a need to have nuclear hardened bunkers, which would have been an increase over the traditional category 1 through 4 bunkers that are out there. So I thought that was an opportunity. However, there was a glut of data centers in the market at the time, and they were selling for 10 and 15 cents on the dollar. So protecting computers wasn't a good viable marketing opportunity.
So you purchase missile silos and then you convert them into penthouse bunkers. And I have to say that with all the heavy military grade concrete and steel that these former missile silos are constructed with, I imagine it must have been a bit of a nightmare to redo the concrete, the steel beams. From a builder's perspective, it does sound like a bit of a nightmare. What was that process like?
Well, you're right. It was something that 96 other people had tried previous to me, and none had done it. And so I was told that by some architects and knowledgeable people from the Army Corps of Engineers and whatnot. But I was up for the challenge and thought I could do it. So basically, you're working with the upper 35 feet of this structure. Think of a tin can, or a tall can rather, that's 176 feet long that sticks down into the ground. And that can is made of concrete that the upper 35 feet of it is 9 feet thick. And the thinnest concrete anywhere in the facility was 30 inches thick.
Now, did you have to dynamite your way through that nonsense, or did you hire a couple thousand guys with pickaxes to go at it? How did you penetrate that enormous block of concrete?
Well, we strategically picked the places where we needed to mostly drill to allow there were some access tunnels already there for the existing purpose, but we had to literally, John, take about 200 tons of old steel out of the silo with big cranes and cutting torches. And that took 9 months just to get the old steel out. Then we had to tear up the bottom of the silo and put brand new footings in that would support. The weight distribution for a nuclear missile is completely different than the support structure for a condominium. So we had to put new piers that would support the points that we were building. And so we used to give you an idea of some of the complexities where we did have to drill through walls. Over the course of the whole project, we spent $250,000 on diamond bit drilling.
Mm-hmm. When did you purchase your first silo, and how long did it take you to convert it to a bunker?
I purchased it in June of 2008 was the first one I purchased. And it took a good 2 years to get it cleaned up and to do the feasibility study and the preliminary engineering on it.
Now, your website is called survivalcondo.com, and it says that you're selling these bunkers for between 1.5 and 4.5 million. What size is most popular with your customers?
Well, the half floor and the full floor units. The half floor is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit, and it's about 940 square feet. And people in New York City that are in high expense areas like that are used to those types of costs for price per square foot. The full floor units are about 1,840 square feet, and they're 3-bedroom, 2-bath units. And there's several different floor plans that you can get.
How many silos have you purchased to date and converted?
I've purchased 2, and I have options on 4 more.
And they're all 16 floor silos?
Well, they could, yeah, they're all part interchangeable. They're what was known as the Atlas F series. There was an E series before the F that was less hardened. The Fs were the ones that were designed to take a direct nuclear strike and keep functioning.
What do you think is selling more silos and more bunkers these days? Is it the war in the Ukraine? Is it the escalating and ongoing issues with China? Or, is it the various health threats posed by recent events over the last couple of years?
John, it's all of the above. I mean, prior to the pandemic with COVID, people were worried about when North Korea would act up and start firing missiles across the straits towards Japan, and they were doing all their saber rattling and threatened to detonate a EMP pulse over the United States. And before that, it was the China saber rattling, and it just goes on and on. Pick your poison from day to day. But then there's a lot of inclement weather. I mean, I've done a lot of research into the weather. I looked at disasters over the last 20 or 30 years, and there's been a 300% increase from 1990 through 89 compared to the same 10-year period from 80 to 89. And now that was like more natural events like storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, cyclones. It didn't include things like earthquakes or volcanic eruptions, which, of course, the climate people like to separate out, but that's okay.
So, logistically, administratively, legally, how challenging is it to buy a used missile silo from the government?
These are known as what's called FUDs, FUDS, for formerly used defense sites. And every one of them is on the Congressional Superfund of Contaminated Sites. So you'd better know how to read an environmental test report, because if you can't do that, you got no business buying one of these things. It took 10 years for the Kansas Department of Health and Environment and the Army Corps of Engineers and the Environmental Protection Agency to do their studies and come out and do a rating about, which ones were safe and which ones, had contaminations and aren't safe. Suffice it to say that I only purchased and bought options on the ones that were safe for construction.
Can one of these units be rented out on Airbnb after it's purchased from you?
No, our bylaws don't do that. The high and ultra high net worth client that we have very much want to know who their neighbors are. And they're going to have their kids there. These people are used to high security and having a safety. They don't want to worry about who the guy is that moves in next door. And for that very reason, we run background checks on people. Now, if somebody has a misdemeanor or something that for being human when they're younger or whatever, that's not a problem. But we do filter for anyone that has crimes against children or has felony assault type charges as a violent person, but we're not letting any child molesters or anything like that in the facility, and we do screen for that.
Have any cartel guys or Russian mobsters failed to get through your vetting process?
We've had several failures. We had a few fairly recently that surprised me. Because of our NDAs, I can't go into too much detail, but yes, in the bigger picture to your question is yes, we've had numerous people fail for assorted terrible reasons.
Can the occupants get a decent cell phone signal down there once the front door is locked?
Probably better than what you get in your garage at home. We actually have a fifth generation 5G cell phone repeater system inside of the silo because it's you have to be able to communicate. We also have Starlink high-speed internet service at the facility. So if you wanted to come out there and you needed to do work like during the pandemic, the people that came out there and wanted their family to be there could continue doing work over the high-speed internet.
What's the longest that you personally have ever stayed underground in one of these units? I'm assuming while you were working on it.
I've been out there. Usually we come out during the course of a week, but I do remember a time when we were particularly busy and I was working 16-hour days. think it was pretty close to 30 days before I came out.
Really?
Yeah.
Lots of sandwiches and coffee, I'm guessing. I
You
don't know.
know, it's really deceiving because even though you're underground, it's you don't feel it. The electronic windows that we have televisions that are mounted in a portrait orientation, so that when you have a high definition camera on the outside and you see the wind blowing and the time of day, subconsciously you think it's a window and you think you're at ground level. So you really don't feel like you're being sequestered underground.
Now, when guys are in solitary confinement in prison, they say it affects the passage of time. For some, it speeds time up. For others, it slows it down or stops it. What happens to your perception of time when you're underground in a bunker for a protracted period of time?
I'm probably the wrong guy to ask that question because my days evaporate. I wake up in the morning and I work and I go and I have a lot to do and I do a lot of interesting things, and then all of a sudden it's like dinner time, and I'm just stunned. I frequently think I've been alien abducted and I've got missing time, but I don't know what the right answer is. But my days just fly by.
What happens if there's a power outage or your power backup system fails or there's an electromagnetic pulse attack? Are your silos capable of withstanding an EMP attack? Do you know?
Yes, in fact, one of the things I can do is show you a picture of our power room, which is kind of relevant to what we're talking about here. This behind me now is there's a $3 million electrical power system in this facility. We don't have one power source. We don't have two. We have five, including a grid connection, two big Caterpillar diesel generators, each one of which can run the whole facility. We also have a wind turbine because we're in a class 4 area. So we have green renewable energy that produces excess energy that are stored in the batteries behind me. And that computer frequently just picks whichever power source is the cheapest to run. And then we also have that battery bank, which when used can power the whole facility.
Now, I see you're building a lot of redundancy into your systems. Are you an engineer by trade?
I am. I'm a computer engineer. I've got a master's in computer engineering and I've got a master's in business administration.
And did you design these power systems and some of the other systems in your silos from scratch, or did you buy some
I
off the shelf technology and then just modify it?
No, this was all custom made, and we had very specific electrical engineers do this type of work. But I did design a lot of the building management systems. We do a lot of systems integration. I do a lot of database and software design, and I did do a lot of the system integration that lets us monitor these systems.
Who are your biggest customers? Is it wealthy individuals, foreign governments, or corporations?
Wealthy individuals,
Okay.
yeah, by far.
Are the new owners able to bring their own weapons for protection with them once they occupy their unit?
They can, yes.
Can they watch live cable or broadcast television down in the bunker, or is that not possible?
Yeah, no, we have a satellite TV system connected that has all types of feeds. You get all the major networks, and you can also get streaming over the high-speed internet.
So, what happens if somebody wants to open the front door and leave during a crisis? Who decides who can leave and why? And how do you know there's no viral radiation or physical threat outside before you allow the door to be opened by somebody?
Well, put it this way. Once there's that type of a level, we call that lockdown mode, where we go into lockdown, we seal all the doors and we power them down, and they can only be powered up. And there's some that have emergency exit procedures. But when you're protected like that, you don't feel like, a nicotine fit's going to throw you outside to want to go smoke a cigarette when you know that what's outside could kill you. We also have a classified number of cameras that both are outside the facility looking back at us and from inside the facility looking out. We also have Geiger counters and other types of sensors that determine air quality. We monitor for carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide concentrations inside the silo. and we use nuclear, biological, and chemical air filtration when there's outside threats.
Will each penthouse bunker, have a live internet connection they can use, or do they have to go to some group conference room to get online?
It's ubiquitous. We have high-speed Wi-Fi throughout the whole facility, so you can surf on your phone anywhere in the whole facility, or you could sit at your PC in your own unit and use your full-size computer.
Now, will the price of your condos go up by 1,000% the day after a war breaks?
Well, that actually happened, and back in the I think it was 2012 or 13 when the earthquake, it was 9.2, and the tsunami that hit Japan, and it cracked the Fukushima nuclear reactors. We had people from Tokyo call up that wanted to buy units, but there weren't any. We were sold out. And they started offering like a $500,000 above what somebody paid for it. Then they got up to $1 million. Then they offered to double the price, and nobody was willing to sell. So, yeah, we've actually experienced that from Japan's incident.
Has anyone ever purchased a bunker and then decided to resell it? Is there a resale market for these things?
Well, there is. And in fact, I had a billionaire that had multiple floors, and he died in as a result of a horrible accident. And I ended up purchasing back his units he had 8 units. I purchased them back from his estate, and I immediately sold 5, and I've kept 3, and I've got another one, but I've got 3 that I still have left that I've decided to sell. So I do still have 3 to sell right now.
So if somebody purchases a full floor unit, how long after they give you a deposit or down payment will they be completed and ready for occupancy?
Well, right now, the ones that I've got are turnkey. You could move in. In fact, I sold one of the other 5 that I sold over the phone. And from the time I got the phone call and gave them a video tour, it closed in 4 days. They've just wired the money, and they've since come and seen it in person, but they just wanted to buy it over the phone, and they did. So you could actually buy these in a week.
Do you control or regulate how many family members or people each bunker can accommodate?
Actually, the state of Kansas regulates that. There's a density for the people. The facility, it's a lot of people. I'm glad you've asked that question, because it's one of the big misnomers that people have. I've got people that call up and say they want to buy a full floor unit and they want to put 50 people in it. And I'm there, you don't understand. I go, on a full floor unit, there's a max occupancy of 10 people. And that 10 people isn't arbitrary. The whole facility is 54,000 square feet. And we have 2,000 cubic feet per minute of air filtration with the NBC filters. We have a water supply system. We have a sewage system. And all of those things are engineered and sized. Everything from the square foot per person to the gallons of water per person to the food consumption to the air conditioning to the CO2 scrubbing. There's so many technical interrelated parameters that you can't just say because they'll fit, we can put them in. If you did that, you would overtax these life support systems and everybody would die. So the square footage was allocated over the residential areas. And so a half floor has a max occupancy of 5 people and the full floors are 10.
So I understand you have some photos of various areas of your bunker. Can you just very quickly run through the photos and tell us what each room is and what each room does?
Yeah, here's another look of the front door. Here you can see these are 18-inch thick armor-plated concrete doors that are blast-proof, and they're hydraulically. Each one of these weighs 8 tons. So that's coming into the facility. Here we've got, this is, you talk about nuclear, biological, and chemical air filtration. These are military grade. These aren't just little masks that you can strap on your head, but there's 3 of these cylinders behind me, and each one of those filters every known pathogen known to man, including things like weaponized nerve gases and things like that. These aren't the kinds of systems that you go down to the Home Depot and purchase. These were bought from Finland and had to be air freighted over. We also have a nice common room up at the near the top, where it's a very nicely finished, but it's not ostentatious. It doesn't make you feel like you don't want to sit on the furniture. It's very comfortable. It's kid friendly. People love it. Another view of the same room. There's a pool table here. You can see a conference room in the background and TV by the fireplace over there. We've got a lot of amenities, things like a gym with all types of workout equipment. We've got a continuing education classroom where, let's face it, this COVID thing was a disaster for kids trying to do the remote learning. And the people that came out here could do homeschooling in these classrooms. We have computer-based training as well as self-paced if you want to do homeschooling on your own. And we've got a facility that supports that. And of course, this is adjacent to the library right next door, which is convenient for things. Some of the units, if we look at some of the kids' rooms, here's a full 4 unit. This is a one of 3 bedrooms. This is set up for the 2 girls that these people have. Then here's another bunk in the same facility. This is the living room and dining room area in a full 4 unit. Here's a different look of that fireplace in that same room. You can kind of get a feel for that. And I think, did I show you the library? This is the library.
Do you have a shot of the pool?
I do. The pool is a very popular place. This is a 75-foot long saltwater pool. This is an oversized hot tub. It's got a water slide for the kids. You can see in the background over my head. Here's a longer view of the pool looking down, but it's got like a rock cliff, like swimming hole type. The concrete is all made to look like a beach. We've got lounge chairs and Fred Flintstone type benches right behind me over my shoulder, that type of thing. But it's in addition to that, we have things like people always ask about security. Well, we've got military grade security. You see the building monitoring system and all these cameras in the background. There's 2 station posts. We have a lot of automation. This is one of 2 security rooms that we've got. We also have an indoor shooting range. People want to keep their shooting skills up to, we can shoot up to 308 caliber rifles indoors in this shooting range behind me. So there's a lot of things like that. There's a movie theater. We have a 17-person movie theater. That's a real popular item. And I believe it or not, our psychologist that we hired to review our designs, the person that I learned the most about building bunkers was our psychologist that we hired. She does mission planning stuff for NASA and the European Space Agency. But she's one of the people said, well, can't we have a bar and lounge in there? And I asked her and she said, oh, absolutely. You need that. It's an independent place for people to vent and socialize, and you really would benefit from that. So we thought that was a pretty interesting take on things. And another really key thing that we get a lot of questions on is the hydroponics. We've got live plants growing there on 2 different floors. And we've got, in this one, you can see there's tomato plants and there's strawberry plants over on that green tower over my shoulder. There's 11 different kinds of lettuce. We've got celery, broccoli, cucumbers, onions, blueberries, all kinds of stuff. Here's another picture of the lettuce wrap, but this stuff is all organic. It is better than anything you buy in the grocery store. It's incredibly tasty. So while we grow this stuff all the time on one of the floors, if you're living there, you can eat this food for free because we have to keep cycling it and keep using it. You can't freeze your lettuce.
Now, did you come up with these plans entirely on your own, or did you hire an architectural firm and tell them what you wanted, and then they drafted the plans?
Yeah, I conceptualized the facility, and then we went through a whole manual, 2,000 hours of what-if scenarios with a bunch of experts in different disciplines, everything from the power to waste and trash and to air scrubbing. And we even have a volcanic ash scrubber in this facility. There's a probability that Yellowstone could erupt, and we've had over 200 eruptions since the year 2000 from volcanoes around the earth. And some of them have shut down airspace over by Iceland and big parts of Europe that cost billions of dollars, and not to mention some in the Pacific. And anyway, it's a very active threat. So we had to, incorporate a mechanism to filter out volcanic ash if that event were to happen.
Interesting. So there are a lot of bunker companies out there in the marketplace. And I'm sure you did an analysis of who was doing what and how they were doing it when you began all this. And I don't think many, if any, are building bunkers and missile silos. Some of them drop metal boxes into the ground and then cover them up with dirt or cement. Others, build their bunkers in caves in the side of mountains. That sort of strikes me as a much cheaper and easier way to do this than, especially the caves, the cave bunkers. Did you do a cost benefit analysis to compare the cost of putting a bunker in a cave in the mountain versus ripping up a huge missile silo? How dramatic is the amount of work and cost involved?
Well, yes, I did do a cost benefit analysis, which is the foundation for anything. And let's start with this. The formerly used defense site, that one of these silos, there were 72 Atlas F series that were built in the 1960s, like in the 59 to 62 era. And each silo cost an average of about $15 million. I just did this exercise before I came on your show because I wanted to bring up this point. In 1960, $15 million, if you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they have a consumer price index calculator. So you could type in your $15 million then and find out what that was in July of 2022. And that number came out to be $151 million in today's dollars. So and that did not include the missile or the electronic, that was to build the facility. So I'm starting with a $151 million structure that I'm renovating, that once we get that going, we can go dollar to dollar afterwards. So this first silo cost me a little over $20 million to renovate and get it operational.
That's acquisition and renovation?
Correct. Yeah, I paid $300,000 for the raw silo, and it cost a great deal to do the engineering. There's $1 million in engineering in these things. So you've got that, and then the actual construction costs. So of course those have gone up, but you end up with 54,000 square feet at 20 million. You find that you're somewhere in the just under $500 a square foot. Okay. If we do a next generation bunker, which we're doing some bids, and we've got some other projects that I can't talk to about because of non-disclosure things, but the new construction starting from scratch is starting at about $1,200 and up to well over $2,000 a square foot.
How will a next gen bunker differ from the current version of your bunkers?
The next gen bunker would be an excavation where we have to do a site feasibility study. And some of the things that we look at in that site feasibility are height above sea level, the seismology of an area, the geology of an area, the proximity to large population centers, the proximity to resources, specifically steel and concrete, an available workforce, and access, road access, air access, whatever, the ability to get materials there, but also to get people there. So we look at all of those things in the site feasibility study. And so once we do that, we do a big excavation in the right place, and we dig down and we put the ring beam and we build these underground domes, and we can connect them with tunnels, and we could do them in a concentric design. We can scale them to support as few as 15 to 20 people or up into the thousands of people.
So these would be what, underground geodesic domes?
Yeah, monolithic dome, underground monolithic domes.
Interesting. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the zombie apocalypse is now in full force, and 1 being everything is fine, go back to sleep, there's nothing out here to see, where do you think the U.S. is now on that scale?
Oh, I think we're probably in the 6 to 7 range.
Yeah, I'd agree. Depending on what happens, during the November elections.
But there's another thing that I wanted to point out about that. It's kind of related to that question, and specifically, it's this: there's a lot of people, I know people tell me all the time, Larry, don't go read the reviews and the comments you get from people. Those are you always get sucked into the idiot conversations and stuff on some of those. But there's a lot of people that seem to think that these survival condos were only built for an extinction level event, like they took out the dinosaurs or something. Nothing could be further from the truth. What we found out was that although we tried to get all of our owners here to have an all hands on meeting, we've never been able to do it until COVID hit. And then everyone, when COVID first hit, nobody knew how deadly it was. Nobody knew what to fear, but they said, oh my gosh, I have a plan in place. We're going to the survival condo. Some of the people hadn't even told their kids that they owned one of these. And when their kids got here, they were just jaw dropped. They were on cloud nine. Then when they found out that it used to be a missile base, they were running around. They had 54,000 square feet to run around in. We've got the movie theater. We've got the 75-foot long indoor pool with slides. We've got the pet park with the rock climbing wall. And we've got air hockey and table tennis and pool and Xbox and 130 video games. And we've got a continuing education classroom and a library. And, kids can vent their exercise. How many people that are in your audience had to go through that experience within the confines of their house? And a lot of people ended up working from home. We all know how the educating from home turned out, not too well, and the kids will be paying for that for years to come. But at the silo, everyone to a person said that the facility exceeded their wildest expectations.
Yeah, I think that pool really pushes everything over the top. I think it probably...
Yeah, and the exercise room and the saunas and the ability to do the high-speed internet and work from home. And the kids can run around and interface with other kids. You're not alone because everyone's filtered into the same environment. So it just solves so many of the problems that people had to deal with for 2 years,
Larry, how did you finance this?
Well, I sold everything I had and purchased it and got started and got to the, and then I had two clients that said if I got it to the demolition phase and started construction, that they would prepay some units. So I got it to that phase, and then I had some people that prepaid the units, and then we just did a typical progress payment for the other resulting sales.
Larry, look at you. Look at the guts it took to do that, to dive in with just that commitment. That's just...
It is. And I have a lot of people, I'm a little thin skinned when people say, oh, you're lucky. And I just get irritated with that. Kind of luck had nothing to do with it. It's got to do with risk and taking calculated risks and seeing a need or an opportunity. And I was determined. I just, you know what? There was a lot of things that, and even more so today, that keep me up at night, and I'd stay online and read all these things, and you get sucked into a lot of it. But not that, and that's another thing. Speaking of sleeping well, because you'd asked a question earlier that I didn't answer, and it was about the Faraday cage. This facility has a Faraday cage, which blocks out electromagnetic pulse, whether it's a detonation from a nuclear weapon that would take out the power grid and fry your computers and things like that. Because this is a big metal cage and it has all these ground loops and special bonding things that the EMP, everything keeps right on working. But it also filters out a lot of other radio waves that apparently have a lot to do with the quality of your sleep. When my wife and son would come out when he got out for school, and they'd come out and spend the summer out here, my son would say, Dad, I've got one more week of school, then I can get some of that silo sleep. They actually call it silo sleep because you sleep so much more soundly. It's remarkable. It's absolutely, and everyone notices it.
If you just look at the mathematics of this undertaking, the government spends the equivalent of $150 million back in 1960, sells it for $300,000.
Yeah.
And that's just emblematic of, the sort of disastrous, management that's involved at that level, financially speaking anyways. And, Elon Musk is building rockets every 15 minutes, and most of them are taking off. Private businessman. And, NASA spent billions of dollars on that ship the other day that couldn't get off the launch pad.
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of Elon Musk. I just really like his results oriented and his big visions. He's a man on a mission that he thinks outside the box. I did a lot of work early on with Steve Jobs and Apple, and wrote one of the first 100 programs that ever ran on an Apple Macintosh. And he was another guy that thought outside of the box and did things. And he reminds me a lot of Elon Musk. And he takes known ways of doing things and says there's got to be a better way. And
I knew the first time I read an article where a reporter asked Elon why he wasn't painting his rockets. And he said it's not necessary and it's a waste of money. That's when I knew this guy was going to be containing his costs really aggressively.
I'll tell you one better about not painting. In the space shuttle days, the original space shuttles were beautiful. They were painted all white, and then they went with that orange, just left the foam. They found out that the weight of the paint was, I forget how many thousands of pounds it added. But not only was it a big cost, but it subtracted from the useful payload because you're talking about thousands of pounds of paint.
Well, before we wrap this up, how can people reach you online? I'm assuming you have
online. There's an inquiry form, and fill that out, and it's pretty self-explanatory. But it's survivalcondo.com, and we don't bite. We don't do timeshare sales techniques. But in fairness, I do need to say that the people that buy do need to have cash to buy these. You can't run out, and it's tough enough to get a mortgage on a conventional house. When you go in and say, I want to get a mortgage on a nuclear hardened luxury bunker, that I think the world's going to go to hell in a handbasket and I might not have to pay this back. You don't get a lot of offers for that. Now, cross-collateralization, yes, people are getting loans like that. But
what's a harder sell, a 1.5 million bunker or 4.5 million bunker?
Actually, they both are pretty equal. It always comes down to family size, because if you've got more than 5 people, you have to get a bigger unit. And if you have fewer than 5 and people can fit in, then they tend to want to get that. I do have one person that only had 3 people that wanted a full floor unit, but that was.
Well, Larry, I want to thank you for coming on the John Ark Show to tell us about your service. We wish you all the best. By the way, just between you and I, if we do have a nuclear event or a biological attack, then I want you to make sure to accidentally leave the secret back door open so that I can come by in the middle of the night and shut the door behind me.
Yes, that you'll need the help of some hydraulics to close that door. But
I can imagine.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.